would you like to tell me who you are and what you do?
Okay, I'm JoJo Pickering from Bash Street Theatre.
And I'm Simon Pullum from Bash Street Theatre Company.
Great. And what kind of work do you make at Bash Street?
We do silent comedy shows with live music, always a story, and comic stunts and characters.
When we started a long time ago, we were very circus based, and that evolved over the years to be less circus based. We used to do lots of tightrope walking, unicycling, juggling, and now we do more stunts and more theatrical and storylines, narrative.
And what inspires that work? Where do you get your stories from?
Most recently from silent films. Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd. Yep.
Well, we talked about this, didn't we? When we saw your questions, and we were thinking about it, and we had different answers, which was quite interesting. I realised that I was brought up in Spain, and a lot of the festivals were out on the streets, and it was just fantastic and exciting. And that for me was my first sort of experience of outdoor fun, if you like. And there was fun fairs, and then when I came to England when I was 12, I was quite disappointed with the English sort of parades. They weren't as exciting as I'd had previously. And I started off as a dancer and didn't make it as a dancer. So then when I met Simon, who was working in theatre, we sort of came together and we saw these amazing companies performing in Europe. And I think that's sort of, we just thought, well, we can try and do that. And that's part of the silent no words, was it means we can go anywhere in the world. So right from the beginning, we didn't use language. But Simon's inspiration is very different to mine.
And where did you start with all this?
Well, I feel such a fraud because I'm totally untrained and trained as a journalist. And worked on provincial newspapers in Cornwall for 4 or 5 years, but I just loved. Nobody wanted to go into the to do reviews. I used to do the cinema reviews, local dramatics, carnivals, fates, all the stuff that nobody else really wanted to do. And as I got more and more involved, particularly with local theatre, I just wanted to do this stuff, and I got involved with a professional touring company.
Who were they?
They were called Shiva Theatre. That then became Cornwall Theatre Company, and somebody dropped out of a show they were doing, and they asked me to fill in, which I did for the summer because it was 2 shows in a week in the evenings, and then they were going on tour to sort of regional theatres in the Midlands, and they said, "Well, do you want to come?" And I said, "Well, I can't because I've got my proper job." So I asked for 3 months off, and of course I couldn't take 3 months off from the West Britain. So I ran off and literally joined this theatre company for very little pay. But I worked with them for a few years.
When I met Simon, he was doing he had a street band called Joe's Jungle Band, which was with members of Shiva Theatre, and because they didn't quite make enough money, they would go out busking.
Didn't at all make enough money, so
and
we used to go out busking. So
stories of Simon making his own stilts and trying them on in the kitchen where he could, and then he would go out and play his fiddle on his stilts because that was just a bit more visual. So I met Simon when they were doing this, and I was inspired by that as well because it was familiar. It was fun. Yeah. That's what it was. It was a lot of fun.
In the company, we all played a bit of music, and my brother, who was a good musician, arranged stuff for us. I played fiddle. We had a keyboard player who wasn't really a keyboard player, but he could do a few chords. But anyway, we realised that not being a wonderful band, it was a lot better if you looked crazy and you could do stuff on a unicycle or on stilts. So that was reason.
So you were what they call self-taught?
Yes.
Yeah.
Learned to juggle, which was really, really hard for me. And yeah, we just learned basic stuff that looked very, very lively and fun on the streets.
And we bought a bus, a 32-seater bus that didn't have the seats in it, and we went off on an adventure, and we thought we were going to go to Italy, and we ended up not going to Italy. We ended up stopping in Brittany and meeting some very special people who just, basically it was because of them that we started the company. They introduced us to a local company called Spooky Holes, and they taught us a lot of the other circus skills that we hadn't done before, tightrope walking, which Simon focused on, and introduced us to flying trapeze, which was dreadfully exciting. And it was because of them and seeing the festival Morlaix, which was on every week in the summer, Les Arts de la Rue, and seeing all these amazing companies doing this stuff outdoors. So that's where we did our very first show.
So what year was that?
I just say it's going back a few years. That was 1991.
21.
And it was lovely. I thought that I went into the theatre in Morlaix because I knew the director was the guy who ran the summer festival, and I thought I could get our busking band and to do a slot at this festival. And I sort of said what we did, and he said okay, and he wrote it down on okay, I'll give you this slot. Was it the 7th of August, I think? But I couldn't get our busking band to do this, and this was in February or March.
They didn't want to.
So there was JoJo and myself, and we didn't really have a show on our own at all, and we also didn't realise how big this festival was.
So our other friends, they made us this tightrope. We found two French musicians, and we just put together this show, and it was extraordinary because there was a massive show going to be after us. So our first show was in front of 3,000 people. It was just a huge audience, and we was just like, oh dear.
This huge medieval square in Morlaix, and there were just tiers of rows of tiered seating all the way along it.
I have to say.
And we were down one end because the big show was in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, but people, get there early, and I think we were on at 8 o'clock or something. But we were right down this end, and there's people over there who were sort of supposed to be watching us, but they wouldn't have known what was going on. So we decided to do a parade up and down for the first sort of 10 minutes.
Did we? I can't remember that.
Just so we could have some contact with these people down there.
Yeah.
But it was
It
amazing.
taught you how to drum up an audience.
Yeah. Amazing baptism.
Yeah. And how did it go down?
It was amazing. Yeah, absolutely. They were just lovely people. We didn't know really
Felt like
what we
a
were
highlight.
doing.
Of course, the adrenaline was amazing afterwards, and our friends were in the audience, and they were gorgeous, and it was wonderful. And then 3 months later, I saw a video of it, and I thought, oh, it's terrible. But we got better. In the early years, we got a contract to perform at Land's End for 5 days a week in the summer. So that was like our grant.
Yeah.
And that enabled us to bring other performers in, other musicians and other performers. So that was most of the 90s, enabled us to do that. And then there was this transition period after that where we sort of moved away from doing that, which enabled us then to tour more extensively. And then we sort of started developing more in a theatre direction with storylines.
So you were based in Southwest?
Yeah.
In Penzance.
In Penzance, and you still are?
Yes.
Yes.
Has that had any kind of inspiration for you? The place, the people?
It has, only because Footspan Company were based in Cornwall and then moved to France, sadly. for Cornwall, and they for me that was the most amazing theatre. I mean, it wasn't. Well, they did outdoor stuff. They had again, like our theatre company had an offshoot which played music. The Barneys, they were called Danielle Ravai, you know, and the Barneys. For me, that was the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. They had a Festival of Fools edition in Penzance, and seeing Danielle on sort of a 7-8 foot tower that they constructed in front of your eyes, and the audience are wondering what's going on here, and an entourage of crazy characters, and he stands on this tower, and someone in a beaten up car drives straight at him, and as the car hits the tower, he jumps up in the air, the car goes underneath, and he lands safe and sound. And the whole theatre of that
It's just astounding. Yeah.
I want to do stuff like that. I thought.
You're not the first ones to mention Footsbarn.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I mean,
they were an early inspiration for me too.
Yeah, but they did tented shows, and that's when I saw them. They're King Arthur and the most wonderful Hamlet show ever.
And there was a thing called Dragon Fair down there, where lots of groups.
Elephant Fair.
Elephant Fair. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Elephant Fair.
That's okay.
Which is
now
now
Port Elliot.
Port Elliot Festival with lots of people from London coming down, and it's become a fashion show, sadly.
But it wasn't like that.
It wasn't.
No.
It
was rough and ready and wonderful.
It was brilliant. Is it Desperate Men talk about?
No, they didn't. They just talked about Footsbarn as being
I'm pretty sure I saw Desperate Men there years and years ago, long time ago. So yes, Footsbarn, because they were based in Cornwall, but actually we're not sort of part of the Cornish community, or haven't been inspired by the landscape. I can't admit.
Because we started in France, we've always had half of a foot in Europe, and that's always enabled us to sort of tour in Brittany and then further afield. And after a while, we had a little flat in Morlaix, and with a French phone number, and that enabled us to get bookings in France. And towards the end of the 90s, we had 2 children. And we lost our flat there, and for the first few years with the kids we just became more UK based, and moved slightly away from the circus, more into theatre, and that's when we developed Cliffhanger, our silent movie show inspired by Buster Keaton. In about 2005 the children were getting a little bit older, and we decided we wanted to get back into Europe, and we managed to get selected to take Cliffhanger to Rouen, Sotteville, and we didn't think we'd done a particularly good show, because we were touring another show at the time. We were doing Cliffhanger so we didn't feel it had gone as well as it could have gone, but we got lots of shows from that. And it obviously had gone down much better than we thought. And that had a sort of a rolling effect after that, with Cliffhanger touring all over Europe. And the highlight of that was performing Cliffhanger in Tarrega in 2006. Am I getting that right? Something like that.
I've always thought of you as a company that's been more successful than most in getting your work out to Europe and touring Europe.
Really lucky.
Yeah.
And
yes.
It was because we did that showcase
2006.
at Sotteville.
That started it.
And we were supposed to be doing Cardiff Children's Festival, which we had done for several years. And then we got selected for this showcase. And I've never done this since, but I had to phone up with Pete Gregory from the Welsh Arts Council.
Who's always been very kind to us.
Used to run the Children's Festival in Cardiff, and I phoned her up to say, look, can you help us, because we've got this showcase which we think it's a special one to do, but you've booked us, can we can we not come to the children's festival? Which I felt really bad. He was fantastic.
Well, he's an ex-performer from No Fit State.
You've got to go for it, and so it's thanks to him actually that we did this. We met straight away after the first or second show.
Charlie Bick.
The chap who runs it, Charlie Bick, who
used to run, he doesn't anymore.
Tête-à-Tête
in Germany
festival,
and he invited us to that festival, and then that opened up the German market. And I think also that
through him we met Uta, who is still an agent who gets us work in Germany. So it was just.
I think because we'd gone to France all those years ago and we'd learnt to speak French. I speak Spanish because I spent my childhood in Spain, and Simon had quite good academic French. But we both were living in a French community, so there was nobody to speak English to, so we just spoke French. We had to learn it pretty quick. And I think because of that, when we then did the show in Sotteville, we could talk to people with French, not brilliant French or anything, but we could do that. And Simon can speak on the phone in French. And I think all that helped a lot. And we had a French phone number. We bought a little property in Brittany. We couldn't afford in England to have a property with a garden, but we bought this little property in Brittany for not very much money with just a big garden, and we would just go there in the summer, not always have to come back to England with the company. We would go there in between gigs when we were touring.
So you said earlier on you had kids as well.
Yes.
So in terms of you making work in Europe and having a place in France and being there for lengths of time, how did you manage having a family as well as working?
It's interesting because actually I've had children most of my adult life. I had my first son when I was 21. So when we met, I was a single mum. So straight from the beginning, we were touring with a child. But it was very different.
You didn't home educate?
No.
Your first?
No.
Oliver?
Finbar was born in 1999 and Lockie in 2001. And they've never been to school. And they've been home educated, and they've toured all over the world with us and are now performing with us.
I've seen them.
They're fantastic.
Yes.
They really are. And it's been a real joy to have, and a privilege to be part of their education, supporting their education, and being able to do it. And we can only do it because we are together, as we are actually married now, but we weren't then. But together as a partnership in work and privately. Because of that, we can do that. And I've seen a lot of people who, when they have children, they stop performing, and I think it's such a shame.
But also, who we worked with for many years, we worked with two other performers, musician and a dear friend of ours who sadly had to stop performing with us because he had a heart attack, Russell.
We've got to mention Russell Hurd. For many years, he was our most favourite ugly villain.
But it's not easy for these people to be with us, with our kids. And so
he had to leave. He left his children behind, which, not always. He did spend a summer where he got a camper van. He toured with us in Europe with his family, but very, very hard to leave. And we've been so lucky that harder for everybody touring with us, but lucky for us.
So you're kind of following a very old tradition here of the travelling players, of the family company. There's not many that do that. As you say, lots of people change tack.
With the schooling, it is so hard.
And with the schooling, we're lucky because when we're at home in Cornwall, there is a network of other home educated children, so they've got a very strong network of community people similar to them. But yes, I think that all my life I've travelled. I've come from that background. In my early years it was sailing, so for me that's what
you're nomadic.
Yes, I am nomadic. And Simon has become.
It is such a joy and a privilege to we just got the best job in the world, but to go to different countries and say, look, this is what we do, and mostly pretty well all the time. People enjoy
the work,
humour or whatever it is. The
style.
Yes.
It's very old-fashioned style of performance that we do. And just yesterday, I was talking to someone, just by chance, who apparently is a photographer for the Sotterville Festival we were talking about, totally by chance. And he came up and said, "Oh, I've been seeing you work over the years, and we've got less work over the last couple of years. We've got less work in Europe. Whether that's to do with Brexit,
no,
we don't know. But we won't go into that." But he was, and I was saying, perhaps it's because we are going out of fashion a bit. We've got so many new companies, and he said, "Well, yeah, your style is old-fashioned, if you like." But he said that he was unaware of any other company with a similar style.
No.
And he was saying, "Well, so that's your place, and that's fine. I don't feel bad about it." But
no.
So that was.
It's
nice,
what's distinctive about you. Is how you make.
Well, we always use live music, and we always do silent comedy, if you like.
Our current show is in colour.
So when you're making work, how does that happen? Do you have distinctive roles in the making of the work?
Things
JoJo's
have changed.
The boss, obviously.
It's not true. Things have changed. It's 28 years, and things have changed over the time.
Yeah.
Very much at the beginning, it was very much Simon, and I was more like it was my job with Simon. It was Simon's company a bit more, and then I actually did some studying with the Open University and got an MBA, and through that I kind of learnt and had the confidence.
Say what an MBA is.
A Master of Business Administration,
right.
Which
enabled me as businessy skills, if you like.
That's fantastic. I can't do the admin. I'm not good at networking and all the stuff that you have to do. I thought it was impossible that anybody would give a tiny street theatre company from Penzance any sort of grant. And then JoJo saying, "Well, no, the Arts Council, they've got some money at the moment." So it's down to Joe that in 2003 we got a beautiful blue Mercedes van, and I'm very much, why would they give it to us? The plumber down the road or the carpenter, they don't get any help from anybody to do their job.
Well, there are business grants.
I know, but I was unaware of grants for the arts, or even when I became aware of them, why would they give it to me, us?
That was a big moment, getting that van. That has changed. I mean, our shows have got to fit in our van. The amount of performers have got to fit in the van. We always think of ourselves as a sort of little big show. We try and build a set that's sort of a bit significant and looks fun and interesting, and then we develop the shows around that set. Simon is fantastic at constructing. We use this key clamp system. He's really good at that. And Russell's wife, Helen Tiley, she's been instrumental in designing and painting. So Simon and Helen talk about the set, and then Simon makes it and Helen paints it and makes it look beautiful. And she also talks to me about the costumes. I tend to make the costumes, but we talk about the colour palette. So it's very much a in-house, and we bring in outside people to direct or perform with us as and when needed, and financially that we can. Yeah. And I think the fact that we're still here is because we've never become a limited company. We've never lost control of our company. We do as much or as little work as we want to, or as we can. Yeah. For example, 2014 we did a not most sensible business thing in the world to do, but we took 2 years off and went sailing with our children before they were too old to want to have a big adventure like that with us. So I think that's why we aren't as busy as we would otherwise have been. But the economic situation, I don't think anybody is as busy as they used to be.
But you've made it work economically by making yourself, I suppose, less encumbered with...
If you don't rely on any grants, when you don't get a grant, you don't you know,
that's true. But the grants have
you're not
enabled us to do
in desperate straits. So.
better and bigger
Absolutely.
and employ different people that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. And so that's really enhanced our development, I think. But because we have been small and contained, we haven't relied on that. We've never applied for MPO status. We've always wanted to just do project jumps, because that again keeps us control. And because we had this children, we wanted to be able to be flexible around that.
And your children are also part of the shows now?
Well, one is at the moment playing piano for us and wants to perform. He does a little clown act. And
He's been at Circuit Media for a year. He's extremely good piano player.
And the older boy has done stilt walking with us.
And Cliffhanger. We did a version of Cliffhanger with Finbar, our older son, as the villain, and Lachlan on the piano, and my niece as a dual villain. And we did a season of this, and we took it to Turkey, and I felt so proud. The show wasn't possibly quite as it was before, but it was so wonderful just to be on stage and think, that's my niece, and that's my son, and that's my son. Oh, my son's lifting me up and throwing me around. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. You get external directors in, people who come and direct the shows for you?
Yes, various. Mikey Martins has been a director of the show, the station.
Yeah.
And Dave Twomlow, who's local to Cornwall, he directed Cliffhanger for the first time. And we worked at other people. It depends on the project and the money. And
yes.
Oh, and what was that? We had in France. We did a residency in Le Fourneau in Brest, and they arranged for. Can you remember his name? Fabrice to come and be an outside eye for 10 days, and that was really, really fantastic. From what's the name of their company?
JoJo
Sature. You seen them? Great work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess that you get exposed to lots of different kinds of work because you're out there in Europe, and there's more festivals and
it is
a plethora of amazing acts and so on. So you get chances to collaborate with some of those people.
Not so much, but this was a situation where we had seen their shows and we thought their humour and their style had a similarity to ours.
Yeah.
When we went to see Michelle Brousseau at Le Fourneau and she was talking about the residency, I mentioned that as a possibility, thinking they would like that kind of idea of a collaboration. She loved it straight away, and it worked for us really well. And we'd like to work with him again, but none of the initiatives I've tried to get money for have worked. But we'd like to work with him again. Yeah. Very interesting man.
Do you ever get invited to do things outside of Bash Street in your own right?
No, I don't think I have.
Direct other people's work or make things for them? Or
I just wouldn't
advise.
feel... terrible, isn't it? I would not feel I have the talent or the experience to do it.
Experience, you definitely
well,
must
but not as a director. I mean,
No, but I mean, you
Simon's actually quite good as a director. I've watched him direct a few youngsters for audition pieces and such like that.
Yeah.
Good ideas.
I'm sure you have lots of strings to your bow that you could be putting out there if you wanted to, of course.
Well, it's opportunity
for advice.
I think it's because we are right at the end in Penzance. We're a long way away from the nearest sort of other outdoor hub near to us is Bristol. Yeah. And Bristol's its own hub anyway, so we've not really done much work in Bristol because there are so many companies that are more likely to work. And I think because of that, there isn't a network that we are therefore part of. I have done some mentoring and would always be happy to do that more because I love the idea of encouraging and supporting.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're doing a little bit more now in the company, is supporting the next generation.
We have
again, my niece
emails from people, from young performers who want to, get into the business and asking for advice. And as I've explained, for me, I don't know how to help them because I said, well, I did this and this is how I fell into this work,
you often don't know what you know until people ask.
Well, you just got to go and do it.
Yeah.
That's all you can say, isn't it?
Exactly.
Just go and do it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the thing, particularly with outdoor work. You can just go out on any street and you can learn the trade.
So if somebody's considering working in the outdoor arts, what would you say to recommend it?
Well, yeah.
I'd say go and see some work, lots of work, and see the things that you like doing, and practice some skills that you like, and then make a show and go and do it. And the more you do it, the more you get seen. And if you get seen, somebody might give you a booking. You get one booking, you might get 2 bookings. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that seems a wise thing to do. And I suppose you've got a model that you could tell them about in terms of the way you've managed to keep your career going, keep this company going. For how many years is it now? 90? Did you say 90?
28 years.
28 years,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I think we've been very lucky. We're still together, which helps.
Yes, I mean, working together and being marital partners, does that have its stresses and strains?
Of course.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
But
What's the most important thing is we're in sync, in the direction that we want to go
Yes.
in. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good also to challenge, because if you're too in sync, then you end up just agreeing with each other. So it's a balance with that, I think.
Yeah, yin and yang.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
So, what do you think has been the thing you're most proud of?
Go on then, you go.
Work or otherwise?
I guess it, for me, must be when we went to Tarrega, that JoJo mentioned earlier, and they gave us a prize for the best street theatre show
At Tarrega.
And at the time I wasn't aware that Tarrega is like such a big, respected sort of festival.
But it was more than the prize. It was more than the prize. It was the performance there. We were backstage, and at the very beginning, so there's 3 performers, me, Simon and Russell backstage. The musician was already out there playing. And Simon he walks around and he comes backstage and comes out through the door. So he does this loop, and he did this loop, he came backstage, and he came backstage, unusual for Simon, he's usually completely focused backstage. You made some kind of gesture or something.
I couldn't believe how many people there were. We'd sort of been out, and you sort of look out, it was getting...
Thousands of people out there.
Yeah.
We don't know, we can't judge. Lots of people have said different numbers.
It
was huge, the biggest audience ever.
We went to Tarrega to get work. I didn't know they give prizes for this, whatever. Had no idea. And when we got there, obviously, we were told, there's going to be a prize. And, big companies. And again, we're just this tiny little company from Penzance. But yes, there were thousands of people, but it was memorable in so many ways. After about 2 or 3 minutes, we were aware that people weren't reacting like we thought they were going to do, and there were people booing. I thought, can't be that bad. What's going on? And we realised after a few seconds they were about 100 yards back. Some people had stood up in the crowd to see what was...
blocking their view.
Yeah.
And people at the back were telling us, sit down.
And they didn't stop until these people sat down, and we kind of just eased back and didn't sort of carry on too much until that was sort of sorted. And then we carried on.
Yes.
But that was just...
What was the show?
Cliffhanger.
It was
That was our
Yeah.
silent movie show.
Yes.
And we had 3 brilliant days there, and it went really well. And so we were sort of joking about they should give us a prize because,
we drove back all the way back from Tarrega. We were waiting at the ferry port to get onto the ferry, and I got the phone call from Jordi Duran, who subsequently, he wasn't at this point, but he subsequently became the director of Tarrega, to say that we had been. And it was just amazing. Little old us from Penzance in our little van.
Yeah, but obviously communicated well with the audience.
Their audiences were lovely. They were really lovely.
Yeah.
I think German audiences are also lovely.
Is it the humour, do you think, that that connects with people?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Especially,
I mean, you know,
especially with the Germans, I think. But I just think that they like the style of what we did. It's not, we don't do anything clever with acrobatics particularly.
There was one show that we did.
Beautiful live music, and it seemed to appeal to older people who realised that the style of what we're doing is trying to reconstruct an old-fashioned movie. And younger people, young kids, it's just very simple goodies, baddies, heroes, heroine, and they will cheer and boo, and I don't know, it just seems to work.
There was one show that we did which was Frankenstein. We don't usually do a named story. We usually devise our own story in-house. And Frankenstein was sort of quite macabre, the way we did it. And that was one of our shows that worked better in the UK than it did in Europe. And everybody said it's very English humour. And I think that was their way of realising or describing the reason why it didn't work so well. But it's funny because you think you're going to do something that might appeal to a European audience, and it doesn't necessarily. I think you just have to do what you love doing and what you want to do, and if it works, hooray, and if it doesn't, you make a new show that might work.
We've talked about Cliffhanger, being very proud of that piece of work, but you're touring a new piece at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, we've just developed a new show called Bellevue Hotel, and Lachlan's playing piano for us in that. It's just Simon and myself. We've scaled down a little bit with performers, but it's still a big set. And it's got a wrecking ball, and we've got a little bit of a Brexit theme. The villain's got a Union Jack cravat. And we've got an Italian ice cream man, we've got a French magician, and the landlady who no one says where she comes from, but I'm the landlady. So that's a lot of fun, and we're still working and developing that show, and hoping to maybe get a residency for next year to actually to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Well, Simon and JoJo, that was an absolute pleasure to hear your story. I mean, I've seen your work off and on over the years, but I didn't know all the backstory, so it's been really interesting. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank
you very
much.
much.
Bye-bye.